This is Akkad of WeAreChange, and welcome back to the daily news show of all the important news that I think you should know about. And today was a very slow news day. But wait, everyone in the mainstream media has been obsessing over mean tweets that were sent out by the President of the United States. Yeah. The story dominated headlines as Donald Trump took to Twitter just a few hours ago and called out Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough and said that, that they have low IQs, Mika Brzezinski is crazy, that Joe Scarborough is a psycho, and that Mika Brzezinski was, quote, bleeding badly from a facelift when she was trying to join Donald Trump for a New Year's Eve party. Seriously, this is what the main top political and intellectual experts were just talking about today. This is what was all over the headlines. This was all just a huge distractions from actual issues that matter to us. I'm still trying to find out what this is a distraction to. Maybe it's because of the oncoming war that's happening right now in Syria. But I think Julian Assange of WikiLeaks made a very interesting point on Twitter today, and he said, quote, "Which is worse, Trump blowing up hundreds of girls' faces to pieces in Yemen, or Trump mentioning the daughter of Zbigniew Brzezinski's facelift?" And to me, other than the obvious idiocracy comments that I can make here, there is something to think about. But Donald Trump, in the first days when he took office, actually decided to call for a raid that was planned under Barack Obama, but the previous president, Barack Obama, decided not to do it. Donald Trump, for some reason, decided to conduct this raid in Yemen, which he personally called for, which killed an 8-year-old American girl. This failed Yemeni raid also killed an American soldier, but the facts are clear. With the information Donald Trump had, he personally called on this raid that resulted in the death and murder of an 8-year-old American girl, and still very few people in our society even know that he was personally responsible for such a horrendous action that was not needed and didn't need to be done according to the intelligence that Barack Obama had when he planned this raid. And sadly, no one knows about this little 8-year-old American citizen girl because the mainstream media barely even talked about it. Which makes me just wonder if the media was just as outraged over Trump's war crimes as they were over these egotistical, meaningless, non-affecting tweets, we would totally live in a different world right now. But it's all a big distraction. And sadly, the legitimate reasons to criticize Donald Trump are never really highlighted. Well, of course, other than real independent media that doesn't kiss up to him, which is very rare now. But continuing on with more Donald Trump foreign policy moves that you should know about, it's important to note that just moments ago, U.S. Special Forces were just deployed in the Kurdish city near the Turkish border. Now, this is very significant to note since Donald Trump's policy that he promised he would engage in when he became president is a total 180-degree flip-flop, especially when it comes to Syria. And in that country, he has officially decided to align himself with the Kurds, which of course pissed off the NATO ally Turkey, has deteriorated relationships between the United States and Turkey, and shows a continuation of Barack Obama's policy of balkanizing Syria, creating as many factions as he can within that country, and making decisions to ensure that this conflict never ends, while at the same time reinforcing rebel groups and the Kurds to have a successful victory against the Syrian army, which ultimately the United States hopes will lead to regime change, as they've been trying to do so for the last few years. Now, of course, this move will piss off Turkey, so it will be interesting to see how they will respond. In other pissed off Middle Eastern country news, we have Qatar that announced that they may soon be turning their back on the US dollar. Now, of course, this will have a significant global impact since Qatar is turning towards Turkey, towards Iran, Russia, and China, since their neighbor and closest previous ally, Saudi Arabia, and their allies decided to isolate them, put political demands on them, and threaten them. So it looks like Qatar will not concede to Saudi Arabia's demands, which leads many foreign policy experts afraid that this situation between Qatar and Saudi Arabia could denigrate into a Syrian or Yemeni-style battlefield between the two oil-rich countries that border each other. Now, in other oil-rich Middle Eastern country news, we have Saudi Arabia that's dealing with its own problem, as the New York Times and former American officials are reporting that the Saudi crown prince that has been recently disposed is now barred from leaving Saudi Arabia and confined to his palace. Now, Saudi Arabia is denying this, but it's important to note that there is even a rift within Saudi Arabia's hierarchy, and it will be very interesting to see how this power vacuum and power rift plays out in the next few days, which we will be keeping a close eye on. And now, in other empires who think that they could buy themselves anything they want in this world news, we have Donald Trump, who held a $10 million fundraiser at the Trump Hotel, which I have to say does not look too good for the president to be raising so much money after just being in office for 5 months, especially if you know how US politics works. And it works very simply. You give someone money, and then that someone does something for you. Our political system is not a democratic republic, it's a craptocracy. So yeah, this is just a little bit troublesome to see. In other sellout politician news, we have H.R. McMaster, Donald Trump's national security advisor, Bilderberg member, globalist, and just really creepy dude who really wants war with Russia, announced that Donald Trump will actually be meeting Vladimir Putin for the first time ever at the upcoming G20 summit. And I am very excited not to see what happens from this, but just from the handshake, the body language, and the posturing, which will tell us everything we need to know about this very critically important meeting that will take place in just a few days from now. And unlike what the mainstream media wants you to believe, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, they're not that friendly to each other, especially on the world stage, with their armies fighting proxy wars against each other. Russian-US relations are at an all-time low. They've been cut off diplomatically, especially with the United States' latest aggressive actions in Syria, and has only deteriorated more almost every single day that Donald Trump has been in office. Now, of course, this meeting will take place also during an FBI probe and other hearings inside of the US government looking into the ties between Russia and the United States election in 2016. And very interestingly, John Podesta himself, Hillary Clinton's previous campaign manager, Chairman John Podesta, got away from his spirit cooking dinner, Google spirit cooking if you don't know what I'm talking about, and this Tuesday was actually interviewed by the House of Representatives Intelligence Committee on how Russia could have potentially influenced the 2016 election. He actually came out in hiding and did an actual interview with Fox Business that got very heated this week.
You know, something that we have to deal with through the whole shares of stock in a Russian company. You were not given 75,000 shares? I didn't have any stock in any Russian company. So go back and get your facts straight, Maria.
And this interview gets very testy, and the video will be in the description so you could watch it for yourself. And now in other creepy men news, we have the Pope's right-hand man, Cardinal George Pell, who's just charged with multiple sexual assault offenses. Now, this is a major story that is sending shockwaves around the Catholic Church, as he is the third-ranking official inside the Vatican that is being charged for the rape of a child and other pedophilia behavior. Now, it's important to note here that he is being charged by the Australian Victoria Police Department, who say he is being charged because of multiple complaints against him, offenses that allegedly go all the way back since 1970, allegations and charges that he strongly denies. But in October, Australian police actually visited the Vatican to interview this cardinal, and as this case unfolds, which we will be keeping an eye out, we will see what the truth of this matter is and how deep the rabbit hole goes when it comes to very powerful people and the most disturbing behavior that he could ever imagine. Now, this is a very serious case that should open everyone's eyes to the reality of how powerful people are able to do such things and sadly get away with it sometimes. Now, in a completely different subject, I wanted to highlight the ridiculous behavior by Patreon recently that decided to investigate YouTuber Sargon of Akkad over the latest incident of what happened to him at VidCon with Anita Sarkeesian. Now, Patreon is a platform that allows people to donate to YouTubers like myself in order to sustain our independent media operations. And for some reason, Patreon decided to investigate Sargon of Akkad, a YouTuber, for sitting at VidCon when, after just sitting there and not doing or saying anything, one of the panelists that he was listening to decided to call him a garbage human being. And because of this, Patreon is investigating Sargon of Akkad, which just blows my mind on how ridiculous this whole situation is, and also how I should probably not rely on Patreon as much as I do. And now in other good news, another YouTuber named Count Dankula was able to reach his financial goals during his fundraiser to fight criminal charges and jail time after he made a YouTube video where he tried to irritate his girlfriend by having her pet turn into a Nazi. This case is another outrageous case of a YouTube comedian who is clearly making a joke, and now he's facing serious jail time and legal court issues for making a satire video, which I think shows you what kind of backwards world we're living in, where people are more outraged by angry words than they are about the murder of innocent 8-year-old girls. Our military defense spending is being used on aggressive civil wars and regime change all around the world, where our public servants are bought and sold, where people in power that people put their faith in and spiritual beliefs in are the ones committing the worst human acts possible, where people who are harassed are being treated like the abusers, and where you can't even make a joke about a pug being a Nazi. So yeah, this is the world that we're living in. I hope you enjoyed today's news broadcast, and if you want more of it, support us on WeAreChange.org/donate, where you could sustain us and support our growth through PayPal, through mail, through Bitcoin, through your shares, your comments, your likes. All of it is appreciated from the bottom of my heart, because if it wasn't for you watching, participating, I wouldn't be able to be here. Thank you. Love you. Stay tuned. We got a lot more bad news coming your way here on youtube.com/WeAreChange.